Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're looking at hair theory and a lot of different micro habits that help you with your hair. I don't shy away from heat tools, hair color, or chemical treatments, and I've maintained my length, and I want to show you all of the different routines that I do in one video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, then give it a thumbs down. Okay, let's get started. At the very core of growing healthy hair out of your scalp is to have a healthy scalp. One of the things I like to use is actually for my face. It's glycolic acid, and this is really affordable. This breaks the bond of dead skin cells with new skin cells, so it can free up the clogged pores on your scalp better than regular shampoo would. And of course, I use that too, but shampoo cleanses the scalp and the surface, whereas this goes a lot deeper. Awesome. Speaking of the scalp, let's talk about greasy hair. We've all been there, of course, and this happens every time it's time to wash your hair. Your scalp builds up oil, and you can always tell that it's time because you get this diamond kind of luster at the roots of your hair. And then, of course, the ends contrast it because they look really dry and often more frizzy than usual. This technique and this practice goes way back to the medieval times. And doing this is more affordable, but it also might get you off dry shampoo completely. All you need is a boar bristle brush. Now, before I show you what we're doing, let me explain why we use a boar bristle brush for this. These bristles are totally different than your average brush. They are really stiff and firm. They're not terribly flexible, and they're not porous either, meaning they don't accept or take in any oils. And what they're really great for is this old practice of spreading oil from the root of the hair all the way down the mid shaft, all the way down to the ends of the hair. You can use the oil that's built up around the scalp and pull it and press it along the ends of your hair so that it reaches the length of your hair, coating it with your natural oils and making the rest of your hair look even and shiny. This is better than using alcohol in dry shampoo along with the powder that's in it to suppress oil and just kind of coat it to keep the oil there but make it not look oily. When you're using your boar bristle brush, section your hair and coat the back side of the hair and the front. So do both sides rather than just running your brush through the whole head. Section it off for the best results. It's worth mentioning while talking about greasy hair that the actual tools you use get cleaned regularly. You want to make sure that there's no excess product and oil built up on your curling iron or your handle of your curling iron and your brushes. The brushes can be washed with hot water and some dish soap, and you can disinfect your hot tools using rubbing alcohol. Thumbs up the video if you're enjoying it so far. Speaking of greasy hair, of course, we probably both have been in this situation where you get sweaty. Maybe you didn't intend to, but you're working out or something and you have to be somewhere and you genuinely don't have time to get your hair wet, wash it, dry it, etc. So the alternative could be to section it off like this. You just take the top and put it up, section the back and put it into a low bun and wash just the top section. Getting this part refreshed and styled and blow dried and looking and smelling really fresh at the very least will hold you over and make you look refreshed, even though your hair desperately needs to be washed. You can do this before your shower or after your shower, either way, but once you've washed your hair, I highly recommend getting right to blow drying it. That way the water doesn't seep down and you can dry it up really quick and use your round brush or whatever tools that you like to use. In fact, this doesn't always have to be done just in a hair crisis or like a sweat crisis. You can do this and refresh the way that your hair looks in general whenever you want. And of course, it is going to extend your wear time of your style. Out of every habit that I've taken on in my 20s, let's say, this one about sleeping, I never thought that it would make the difference that it has. I think we've all heard sleep with a silk pillowcase, use silk hair ties. We've heard all of this, and there's a lot of people who probably hear sleep with a silk bonnet and think that it's not for them. This is not just for people with curly hair, it's for everybody. And I want to speak to those people who really don't think that sleeping with a silk bonnet is going to make a difference. It absolutely will. Before we talk about wrapping your hair and stuff, I want to get it out of the way. You don't need it to be actual silk. It doesn't need to be expensive. You can use satin, which is what most of my bonnets are made of. I don't just put my hair in a bonnet, I also wrap it, and I use a couple of different things. So what I like to do is twist my hair and make sure that it is all up into a twisted bun on the top of my head, securing it with a scrunchie. And this should be made of something soft like satin or silk. If you have a scrunchie that is really loose and big, it's going to give you a looser wave, while a tighter scrunchie and a tighter fit around the bun is going to give you a tighter wave. So you can pick accordingly. Then when you wake up, you can shower, wash your face, do your makeup, whatever you like to do. And then when you take your hair out of the configuration, then it is pre-styled or preserved, if you will. Whatever you had the night before is what you'll have in the morning. The one that I use today is a little bit more advanced because you wrap the hair in a very specific way around it. And you can get into heatless styles and whatever you like under your bonnet in order to maintain your hairstyle. But the whole point being that there's no reason why your hair should get tangled, dried out, lose its curl, lose its style overnight, because it's an opportunity for you to preserve and protect your hair every single time that you sleep. When it comes to my hair cut, I like to involve as few people as possible. Actually, that goes for my hair in general. I like to involve as few people as possible. I like to do it all. I like to do my haircut, my color when possible, and everything really. When it comes to a trim in particular, I'm very much looking to keep the length of my hair. And you tell me in the comments, have you ever gone for a trim and had a big cut? Like a really big cut, like where a lot of hair was taken off? It's understandable that somebody trained in hair has a very specific perspective and is more interested in the health of the hair, maybe dramatic before and after, whatever it may be. But I like to have one perspective. When it comes to trimming my hair, I'm looking to refresh the ends. And it's so simple that it's way more cost effective and fun for me to do it on myself. I dust the ends, taking off a tiny little bit. And then I use a method that is kind of search and destroy. So I look for little pieces that seem to not go with the majority. They kind of stick out. And they usually stick out because they're split. So I grab those little pieces and I try to find and take the little bits off. And then I curl my hair around like this. And all of the pieces that are frayed and stick up, they are likely broken, so they can be trimmed, and you can just renew the edges so that they are strong again and not split. It's important to look at the hair from a perspective of what it's going to look like once you live with it for a little bit. Oftentimes people cut a lot of layers up into their hair, but that's not really going to account for the wear and tear of life and split ends. In this instance, I'm just cutting some breakage so that it's smooth and healthy again, but I'm not cutting a layer on purpose. That's just a little piece that's always a little bit broken. And when I'm talking about the wear and tear of your hair, I'm talking about 6-7 weeks from now, when you have a few split ends and you're going to do that search and destroy method, your hair is going to naturally get a level of layering to it just by the nature of keeping it healthy. So if you're styling a bunch of layers into it already, and then you have breakage on top of that, it's going to be really hard to grow the length of your hair because you'll always need to trim it up and the layers will get shorter and shorter. So I recommend going for a more blunt style of trim, and rather than thinking about this next 3-month season, think about the long game and how your hair is going to age. And as you trim and trim, you'll get a natural level of layering to your hair without you actually putting them in. There's a few things I do in terms of when I blow dry my hair, and I'm not talking about smooth or anything, just with an actual blow dryer. If I'm literally just drying it, I used to think about the ends of the hair and the weight of the hair being what I want to dry first, but I've completely changed it to making sure that I dry my roots first. The roots of the hair are really sealed and they're not porous or open, but the older ends of your hair, the length of your hair is more porous and it'll dry quicker. So if you focus on drying your roots first, you don't run the risk of over drying your ends, contributing to breakage and split ends. This happens a lot because your hair still feels wet, so you keep drying the ends, but it's really just going to dry out the hair. When I look at my hair in this textured form, I always think of it as it either needs to be worn curly or completely smooth and straight. But I've started to do something new with my hair. When I just blow dry it like that, I brush it out and use that texture as a base rather than smoothing it out first. This kind of hairstyle is an enigma. It's a mystery because the end result is mysterious in that the texture is too voluminous for it to be completely natural, and it's also too voluminous for it to be a real blow dry. It's something hybrid and in between. It gives a very vintage kind of feel. If you have naturally curly hair, try doing this. Basically, you section each part, and it's really important with your sections that you don't hold them loosely. You really comb through the hair and make it firm and tense as you wrap it around your hot tool. We're doing basic pin curls, but using that natural texture as a base is going to give a completely different result than it would if you were to have smoothed the hair out already. And using this base is going to give you this volume that is mysterious and totally beautiful. You can wear it messy or smooth. You can add product or just leave it as is. I love it. I recently decided that I would change my hair color. Wasn't really sure about it, but I wanted to go back to natural, so I did. And I decided to use some box dye. Now, after I did it, I was really, really happy that I did, and I've since dyed my hair a few times. Now, on one hand, I have a few things that I do that are different about how I dye my hair, which I'll share with you here. And part of this is because I've been dyeing it more. I didn't just do it once. Because it was so light and so orange, I had to keep the pigment really, really strong. So I've dyed it a few times to bring it back to a more natural, inky black color. Kind of like my natural color if I never had any sun bleach and no highlights. The color that I started with was 2N Purest Black. This is a black box dye that has a pure neutral tone, and I combined it later with this true black color that has a ton of blue in it. Now, I combined the two because I'm not actually going for blue-black hair, but since my hair has a lot of orange in it, the opposite of orange on the color wheel is blue, so adding that in will give a neutral pearlescent shine that's white and shines neutral, not too yellow and not too blue. We have two jobs to do here. Number one, don't get dye over everything that is important. And number two, be prepared so that you can do a really good job. I like to set everything up, and I did ruin one of my capes. So I've been using garbage bags. I just cut it open and make a slit for my shoulder. I have thick hair, so I work on one side at a time. And I actually advise this if you dye your hair yourself, regardless of if you have thick hair or not, there's a lot of benefit to doing it this way and getting perfect color. But let's prep first before I show you how I do that. Now, half of my hair is pinned up. We won't work on that side at all until this side is complete and washed. I'm going to use some Vaseline to protect my skin from any of the dye that will inevitably touch my cheeks as well as my neck. You can use Vaseline as a protective barrier over your ear, but I find it's a more complex area of the body where dye could really get in there. So I like to take some tissue and just pin it over my ear to protect the skin. Regardless of whichever box dye you've used before or you're using, always refer to the instructions. Even if you're familiar with the product, you never know if the formulation may have changed, meaning that the instructions could have changed too. Now I need 2 boxes of dye for my whole head of hair. But like I said, I work in half. So one side of my hair I will bring to completion, applying the dye and then waiting and then washing it out. And I'll show you why I like to do that. It's important while you go to try to clean up. I like to use the box for the dye, and I put all of the garbage in there so that it's not a huge mess as I'm working. It helps you to be more prepared. Each section should be detangled before you apply the color, and that's so that you can, number one, apply it not to the knots and miss little bits and sections, and two, so that when you comb your fingers through, you can spread the dye really easily. If the hair feels wet, you know that there's enough pigment over top of it that it will be able to saturate and absorb, whereas if it feels dry, it's a good idea to add a little bit more dye so that you get a full, even color. Now, there's a few really strong reasons why I believe doing my hair in half is better. Number one, just by the nature of being a human who can get exhausted, working through each section, by the time you get to the other half of your hair, you're more likely to cut corners and not apply the dye with such precision that you get a perfect outcome. The second reason, when you think about this, the first section of hair that gets dye applied is processing from the minute that it has that dye applied to it. And by the time you work to the very last section, if you're doing the whole head of hair, you have a totally different processing time for that area, giving you less of an even result. Now, quick intermission here. This is not hair related, but I do this. Whenever I bend over because I have a shower head and I wash my hair upside down, I don't let my stomach just like fall. And this goes for anything that I'm doing when I'm like bending over cleaning or something. I do a stomach vacuum. And although it's not related to hair, it's definitely related to beauty and like a waist and abs. Using the transverse muscle, which is much bigger and stronger, it's underneath all your ab muscles. You pull in your stomach like a vacuum and you hold it tight, and it just gives you a strong stomach and like less back pain. It's awesome, truly. I'll leave in the description more info about how to do a stomach vacuum. They are really good. So this is the last reason, and probably the most important. I blow dry my hair really gently, and I just check to see if I did a good job on that half of the hair. If I left anything out, I would have the opportunity on that side to dye it while I'm dyeing the other half of the hair and just kind of like fix it and fine tune it. It's a really good way to get even full coverage every time you dye your hair. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and click my channel to watch more. I love you. Bye.